The content game has wildly changed, as you probably have seen in the last year or so. And right now, your content is probably making your ideal clients less likely to buy from you. Let me say that again in a slightly different way. The more educational content that you post, the more you're actually psychologically training your audience not to buy from you. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what to post instead. In fact, I personally found through my own testing that there's one type of content that makes people literally show up. If they pre-sell themselves in your calendar, they show up ready to pay you. And if you're an online coach or a consultant or somebody that's posting content every single day, and maybe you are getting likes, you're getting comments, you're getting people tell you things like, this is so good, but your calendar still feels like a ghost town and your sales are just inconsistent. I need you to hear something that might sting at first a little bit. It might even sound a little bit counterintuitive, but you don't actually have a content problem. And as backwards as this might sound, you don't actually have a lead problem. You have a belief problem. And I'm not talking about your beliefs. I'm talking about your prospects' beliefs. In fact, there are 7 specific beliefs that your ideal client needs to hold as true before they're ever going to pull out their credit cards and pay you. And once you see what these beliefs are, you're going to see how common these things may come up as objections in sales calls, or you might hear in the DMs. And if your content isn't systematically shifting those beliefs, sales is going to feel extremely hard. And in fact, most of the time, what content for most people is doing is just educating people for free, where you're basically running a charity disguised as a coaching business. And that sucks. And I've been there too, which is why I've learned this, which is why I'm telling you this. And so today, I'm just going to show you the one type of content that changes everything. I'm going to walk you through all 7 beliefs. I'm going to show you exactly how to turn them into content. And so by the end of this video, you'll have a complete framework that makes people show up to your sales calls already pre-sold. And in fact, it'll allow your marketing to do more of the heavy lifting for you so that sales becomes easier. Because if your sales feels extremely hard, like you're having a challenging time booking sales calls, and the sales calls that you are getting, it's like a bunch of tire kickers, it's because the marketing is weak. You're not doing what you need to do in your marketing, which is basically pre-sell. In fact, there is a famous author who wrote a book called Influence. His name is Robert Cialdini. And he actually wrote another book that a lot of people don't know about, and it's called Persuasion. It's actually being able to persuade people before you persuade them. And that's what we're going to walk through today. It's how do you actually do that? And so here's what most coaches, most creators, most people that are trying to get clients online, what they do. They might go on social media and they're going to teach. They're going to share tips. They might share their frameworks. They're going to show social proof. They're going to essentially show people how to do things. And the good ones are trying to demonstrate, which we'll get into. There's actually some positives around that. And for most people, the content, and I've done thousands of content audits in the last 5 or 6 years for different brands. And I've seen like the content's pretty good. Like people will love it. They might save it. They might share it. They might even comment something like, this is gold or whatever. You're so motivating. But here's what's actually happening in your prospect's brain when you're just educating them. When you teach someone how to do something, you're giving them an identity. Pay close attention to this. When you teach somebody how to do something, you're giving them an identity. You're turning them into a learner, a student. It's triggering dopamine in their brain. It's someone who now has some type of information and they think, cool, I could probably figure this out myself. We know that might be true, but in most people's cases, it's not true because most people don't do anything, right? You're not making them a buyer, you're making them a DIYer. And this is what I figured out the hard way. I used to think that if I just gave enough value, because that's what all the gurus say, like value, value, value. What was Gary Vee's old line? Like jab, 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 hook. And there's some truth to that. But where we're living in today with how commoditized information is, and what I learned that if I just taught enough, if I just showed people how to do the thing, if I was like, this is how smart I am, they'd eventually buy from me. It makes sense, right? Logically. But more value, more trust, more sales, like that was kind of like what I thought in my head. And I was wrong. Like freaking dead wrong. That may have worked, and it did work more so between 2010, maybe 2012 to all the way up to 2019, pre-COVID. But the people can find information within seconds these days. I mean, think about it. Information itself is a commodity. What actually happened is, for me personally, I created an army of DIYers. People that would show up to my master classes. I would literally get hundreds of people on my master classes and webinars. People who took my free stuff and they told themselves that they'd implement and they never needed to hire me. AKA, this is what a lot of people would call tire kickers. And for me, I would create some sales, and maybe you've seen this too, and I would have such a low percentage of people that would convert. And it sucked. This is like around 2020 for me when it like first really took off. Is I was stuck bouncing between 10, 20, maybe hitting a $30,000 month. It was okay. I was posting daily. I was getting engagement on my stuff. I was watching my calendar pretty much stay empty. Like some weeks it would be full, some weeks it'd be empty, and it was stressful. Like not being able to predict when I was going to get clients. And then I realized it was a belief and an identity problem. Like my content was literally creating the wrong identity in my audience. Now here's what really drove this home for me. I read a line by a world-class marketer named Jay Abraham. And he said something that completely rewired my brain. He said, if you can articulate somebody's problem better than they can, they're going to automatically assume that you have the solution. Catch that. Like, think about this. He didn't say teach them the solution, just educate them. He said articulate the problem. The coach, the creator, the person who wins isn't the one giving the most quote unquote value. And I'm going to explain where kind of the new era of value is going. So hear me out here. But it's the ones who make their audience feel the most understood. And there's a massive difference between like just giving somebody something to make them feel smart or teach when they can find it on ChatGPT in seconds versus actually making somebody feel seen, feel heard, feel understood. And you're going to see in a second and how to actually shift the way they think. Pun intended here, but think about it. Like right now, there's over 1.2 billion posts being published online every single day per Google. Like information is literally a commodity. Google's free, YouTube is free, ChatGPT is free. Your audience can find how, like the how anywhere, whatever it is that they want to search. What they can't find anywhere is someone who gets inside their head, names the thing that they've been struggling with that they couldn't even probably articulate themselves very well, and then shows them why their current approach is actually the reason they're stuck. That's not education, that's influence. And influence is the only thing that creates buyers. Education creates learners. Influence creates buyers. And you get to choose which one your content actually produces. And so if educational content creates learners and influence creates buyers, what does influence actually look like in your content? That's what we're going to walk through over the next few minutes. And it looks like what I call, and we're going to bucket this as belief shifting content. We call it belief shifters. Belief shifting content is content that specifically is designed to change what your ideal client believes to be true. Not teach them something new, but literally change what they have already believed. Because here's the thing. Your ideal client already has a set of beliefs. We all do. They believe, like they have beliefs about their problem, about the solution that they think is going to solve their problem, right? They have beliefs about whether they need help. They have beliefs about whether right now is the right time for them to get help or work on their problem, about whether it's worth the investment. And if any of these beliefs are wrong or limiting for them, they will never buy, no matter how good your content is, no matter how many leads you generate, no matter how smooth your sales calls go. Like I've literally walked into people's businesses that have go high level accounts with thousands of different leads that they've generated from ads and different means over the years. And I'm just like, dude, like their leads are either buying right away or they're dying. There's no process middle of funnel to be able to shift people's beliefs to be able to move them into a sales call or into some type of sales conversation. And but anyways, we're going to go into tactically how to like fix this in just a second. But it's like you could generate leads all day. It's not hard. You could just pay Meta some money and you'll get leads. But most of the time they're going to be shitty quality. And if you don't know how to do this stuff, you're just left with a big pipeline, congratulations, but of non-buyers. And so the sale is won or lost in their beliefs long before they ever get on a call with you. So like, let me give you an example that'll hopefully make this click. And dude, we can look at extremely polarizing examples like the COVID vaccine, to where they weren't just selling a vaccine, they were selling a belief and an identity. You were either a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer. We can look at examples from big brands like Apple. Steve Jobs did this extremely well. Well, one that I think we all know is Elon and Tesla. Like Elon didn't just sell a car. He sold the belief that gas cars are killing the planet and you're part of the problem, right? That's the pain. And that traditional automakers will never innovate fast enough, where that's the whole doubt belief. And that the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get. This is cost of inaction. And that it pays for itself in gas savings, which squash the money objection. And that electric cars are categorically superior, which was his methodology. And that autopilot drives for you, which is around the help and support objection. And that owning a Tesla becomes an identity statement. And so what he did, and what a lot of big brands do, and what I'm going to show you how to do, is how to shift these beliefs into create a new identity. And that is what your content needs to do. Like I just got done reading a book called Shoe Dog, from Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And he did the same thing with Nike. Like he didn't sell better shoes, at least not at the beginning. He sold a belief that there's no choice but to win, that you should be an innovator and a winner, and that to be a winner and an action taker is part of who you are. And he amassed like a strong culture, a strong team, and he was able to become now the biggest shoe company in the world. Because once you believed those things, you embodied that belief and you wanted that identity, you bought Nike products. Not because of the shoes. Like at the time, Adidas was crushing them. But you bought them because of the beliefs. So if you pay attention to their ads and their commercials, even now, you're going to see it clear as day. You're not selling a product or a service. You're selling a belief system and an identity. And another example on this, like I have kids, and I remember, I don't really do this with my kids so much. I just teach them about this stuff. But I remember like when I was growing up, it's like, parents are like, hey, think about, how you get your kids to eat food, right? It's like, tell them there's kids that are starving in other countries. And then they believe it and they feel guilty, and so they eat their food. So we all know how to shift beliefs. We just haven't been doing it deliberately in our businesses yet. And so let's fix that right now. Let's go ahead and walk through the 7 core beliefs your ideal clients need to hold before they're going to buy from you. And I'm going to walk you through every single one of them right now, and then I'm going to show you how to apply them into your content. So as I go through these, I want you to think about your ideal client right now. Think about your market as a whole. I want you to think about the current beliefs that they are currently holding in each one of these different categories. Because that's where you're going to be able to make your content actually pre-sell your prospects. So belief number 1 is pain. This is what I would refer to as the problem belief. Your ideal client thinks the problem is one thing, but the real problem is something usually completely different. They believe the problem is what I think it is, right? So this, in their head, they're like, the problem is this. You need them to believe that the real problem is something they haven't even considered. And I'm going to give you some examples. In fact, in my market right now, like coaches think that the problem they need is more leads or better funnels. But the real problem is that their messaging doesn't actually resonate with people. Their content's educating instead of influencing. Their ads are bringing in tire kickers instead of buyers. And so here's a stat that I would give to people on this that makes this real. Like a perfect webinar or weak positioning converts at 2 to 3%. A messy webinar could be even not that good with killer messaging, converts at 20% or even higher. And so the funnel isn't the problem. The leads aren't the problem. The words are the problem. So when you can name somebody's real problem better than they can name it, like themselves, it's game over. They're yours. Like they're going to be following you. They're going to be wanting to learn from you, to buy from you. Your content around this belief makes your audience say, holy crap, man, that's exactly what's happening to me right now. I never saw it that way before. This is the whole basis of thought leadership. And belief number 2. So that's number 1. It's around the pain, what I call the problem belief. Belief number 2 is doubt. And this is what some people might refer to as the core belief. This is where you create a crack in their certainty. So right now, your prospect may be certain that their current approach is the right path. They just think that they need to execute it better, perhaps. Your job is to create doubt in the old way so there's an opening for your way to fill. Does that make sense? And so right now, they maybe believe something like, the fastest way for me to get to my goal is doing it this old, outdated way. They're obviously not saying it like that, right? But that's what's going on. And whatever the common approach is in your industry, it's probably going to be what it is. And so they might think, hey, I just need to do it harder. I just need to do it better. I just need to be more consistent. You need to believe that the fastest way to reach my goal is doing it a completely different way, your way. And so in my world, most coaches believe that the fastest way to scale is by getting more leads, running more ads, posting more content, basically volume, volume, volume. And so I need to shift that to the fastest way to scale is by mastering your messaging so that every piece of content, every ad you run actually converts better. It's not necessarily about more, it's about better. And then I can go and back that up with things like Russell Brunson says, where people trust Russell Brunson. Like, he's the founder of ClickFunnels. He literally makes funnels. He's done 100 million in sales. And so I can quote a Russell Brunson quote and say, look, Russell Brunson says that before you go and burn a whole bunch of money on ads and try to scale something, get the messaging right first. Really focus on fixing the messaging, then scale it. And so this isn't about bashing what they've been doing by any means. It's about showing them logically and structurally why the approach that they've been taking cannot produce the results they want. And all of this should be true, by the way. Like, none of this you should just make up. This should all actually be true. But the reason your audience doesn't have what they want is because they're believing something to be that's not true, and you need to show them the real way. So your content around this belief creates that realization of, no wonder this hasn't been working, or I've been solving the wrong freaking equation the whole time. Like, your content around this belief challenges their fundamental assumption about what the actual path is. Does that make sense? And so that's belief number 2. It's around doubt. Belief number 3 is around cost. I call this the urgency belief. And so your prospect believes now is not the right time for them. They need to maybe finish other things first. They're not ready yet, maybe next month or next quarter or whatever. And they believe my priority right now is something else. I'm going to get to this eventually, whatever your problem that you solve for them. You need them to believe this is the most important thing I should be spending my time on right now. So your content around this belief creates that urgency. And I'm not talking about like the fake countdown timers or only 3 spots left type nonsense. I'm talking about real logical urgency based on the cost of waiting, the cost of inaction. And what most people don't get about urgency, like real urgency, it's not about your deadline. It's about their deadline. It's about their actual math. Every month your ideal client keeps doing what they're doing is another month of leaving money on the table, another month of unpredictable income, another month of staying overweight, another month of working harder instead of smarter. There's a cost of inaction. And so what's that worth? It's important for you to understand this, to do the math. Like, what's 12 more months of inconsistency going to cost them? What's 12 more months of them not getting to their goal? Not just in dollars. Like, think about in stress, in confidence, in in the real consequences in their life when they're not living and they're trying to wait for that right time. They're not living up to their potential and they're just like, I'm going to wait. So your content needs to make the cost of an action feel heavier than the cost of action, because the right time is almost never later. Later just means more of the same. So that's belief number 3. It's around the cost of inaction. So you need to create real urgency by articulating that. We're going to go into some tactics here in just a minute. Belief number 4 is around money. This is what I would call the investment belief. They believe right now their money is best spent somewhere else. They believe my money is best spent on, maybe in my case, ads or a VA or a new funnel or another course or whatever. You need them to believe that my money is best spent on your solution. So here's the thing about the money objection. It's almost never actually about the money. It's about the perceived value. This is a writer downer. It's never about the money. Almost never. It's almost always, because there's obviously nuances, but it's almost always about the perceived value. They don't see how your solution is worth more than alternatives, even if that alternative is doing something completely different. Your content around this belief needs to reframe what the real investment is. It's not about the price tag of your program or anything like that. It's about the cost of not solving this problem. How much revenue are they losing every single month because their content doesn't convert, in my case, right? How many leads are they burning because their messaging doesn't actually land? If it's weight loss, it's like, what's the real price, health-wise or whatever, of staying stuck? When you can frame it that way, your program isn't just an expense. It's the thing that stops the bleeding. It's the thing that makes every other dollar or day they're spending actually work. I remember when I was in weight loss, I did a video talking about, is hiring a fitness coach expensive? And I had somebody watch it, and I told a story in that video about a client of mine that, like, she was never actually a real client. She kept saying she wanted to start, and she even put a down payment once, but she just couldn't commit. And I later found out she got diagnosed with a heart disease and diabetes, and she may be dead at this point. And I remember telling that story, and there's somebody that was watching, and previously this woman had only paid I think maybe $49 for, back in the day when I was running real cheap boot camps. And then she heard the video and she got onto a call with me, and she ended up spending $3,000. And when I asked her why, what changed, she said the video really showed her the cost of not investing in herself right now. And so it's very powerful when you can identify these things and tell stories and really get people to see it. So your content around this belief doesn't defend your price. It reframes the entire conversation from, can I afford this, to, can I not afford to do this type thing, right? That's number 4. Belief number 5 is around your specific methodology. And I call this the vehicle belief. Russell Brunson, I believe, has a great one on here because of the big domino. But in this case, it's they believe the old way, the common way, the way that everybody else is doing is it. That's the path that they should take. They've tried maybe things similar to what you offer, and maybe it didn't work, maybe it half worked, but either way, they're freaking skeptical. They believe that the current approach that I'm using is the best way to get what I want. Even if it's not working. It's crazy how people's minds work. You need them to believe that your methodology is the best and only and permanent way to get what they want. This is where you position your unique mechanism, your proprietary framework, basically as a categorically different vehicle. Not a better version. This is what Russell Brunson talks about as an improvement offer. We don't want an improvement offer. We want something completely different than what they've tried. This is where communication, this is where messaging really comes into play. Something fundamentally different. And none of us are inventing anything new, but it's how we articulate it, how we communicate it. So for me, it's magic messaging. I have a magic messaging system where I literally show people how to use belief shifting psychology to fill their calendars with pre-sold leads. And so for me, it's not about showing people how to do better content. It's not here's post more, here's how to do a post. It's a specific system for saying the right words in the right way, in the right order, to the right people. And it's different from anything else that they've tried, bar none. So if you don't have a proprietary method or framework with a name or anything, like that's a problem. Because without it, you're a commodity. You're just another coach or an expert saying the same freaking things as everybody else's. And when you're a commodity, people compare you on price, man. And that's a race to the bottom. Your content around this belief has to, it uses basically this framework, if I have to put it in a condensed way. The problem with the old way is this structural flaw, and it's for you to name. And you could say, hey, it's like this analogy. This is why my method works differently. So for example, I would teach something in weight loss that was called the Flex Fuel Nutrition Framework. And so everybody would come to me and they had a belief they needed to eat. They had to go on this XYZ diet. That was their method. And so I would be like, no, it's not just about dieting or eating healthier. It's about eating right. And I have this process called the Flex Fuel Nutrition Method. And in this, I show you how to eat the right amount of calories, the right proportions, and the right types of foods. And when you could do this, we'll start to shed fat. And so I would basically fundamentally get them to see things differently. And then I would use an analogy or story to really bridge the gap between old belief to new belief. Does that make sense? So that's number 5. So 2 more. Stick with me. Belief number 6 is what I call help. This is the support belief. And so this is a freaking big one. Maybe the biggest. Like a lot of your ideal clients believe they should be able to figure this out on their own as humans, especially guys. Like they've got the knowledge, they've got the skills, they just need to execute better. They believe that doing this on my own through trial and error is the best path because that's what a lot of people have been taught, especially as kids. You need them to believe that getting help and following a proven strategy is the best and fastest path. And if you think about it like this, if you thought you had cancer, scary thought, right? But if you thought you had cancer, would you self-diagnose yourself? Would you Google it and treat it yourself? Probably not. You'd probably go see a specialist, whether it's an actual doctor or some monk out in, the jungle, right? You'd probably go see somebody. But that's exactly what your ideal clients are doing with their businesses. They're self-diagnosing, they're Googling or ChatGPTing, they're piecing together free content from 15 different coaches and trying to make it work. So your content around this belief shows them the gap between what they know and what they are actually doing, and why that gap will never close without outside help. And so it's very imperative because there's a lot of people in your audience right now. And when I'm working with somebody with a business, especially people that have like these big pipelines of leads, and I can show them how to solve this belief, partly through content and emails and a VSL, so many more of the people that are already in their pipeline will buy from them. There's so many people that are sitting right now in your Instagram and your Facebook and your email list that are ready to buy from you. You just got to be able to hit this one. And belief number 7 is going to be trust. I call this the guide belief. This is the one that gets overlooked probably more than any other. And honestly, for a lot of coaches, this is the one that's costing them the most sales. Because your prospect, especially now, because your prospect might believe in the problem. They might even believe in the method that you're talking about, or at least like be curious about it. They might even believe in the urgency. They might really want it. They might even want to take action, period. But if they don't trust you specifically are the right person to get them there, they're going to either go find somebody else or they're going to do nothing at all. And so here's why this one is so important. Because your ideal client probably has been burned before. They've likely invested in some kind of course or somebody, an expert, that didn't deliver what they thought. They probably have hired a coach who gave generic advice. Maybe if you're in like fitness, they hired a personal trainer who was on their phone all the time, and they just think that's how all of them are. Heck, I mean, a lot of my people have been in a mastermind where nobody actually helped them. They were just, they showed up with a bunch of other people struggling. And so they show up to your content with that scar tissue. They're skeptical. They're guarded. And they're looking for reasons not to trust you just as much as reasons to trust you. So it's on both sides. And I think it's probably human nature. They believe, right? Like, I've been burned before. I didn't, I don't know this. If the person can actually help somebody like me. Maybe I'm different. I don't know. You need them to believe that this person understands my specific situation and has real credibility and has proven results with people exactly like me. This is not just about sprinkling in testimonials. Like, of course you need testimonials, but it's not just about that. Again, those are very commoditized the way most people are doing them. This is a deliberate strategic belief shift that we need to do, because trust comes from three things in your content. First is connection. So this is your backstory, showing them that you've been where they are. And if you don't serve your ideal client, you need to have a good backstory of like why you're doing what you're doing, that you're not just some guru on a mountaintop where you're just like, follow me, right? You need to show them that you've been in the trenches, you struggled with the same things, and you found a way out. And that's what makes you relatable and credible at the same time. I see people that they're not serving their ideal clients, and that's okay. But you need to have a really good reason to show them why you're the one that can take them there. Especially important for dudes that are training like moms. It's like, if you don't have a good reason, or if you're like not the go-to, it's like they're gonna go hire a female coach who they believe understands them better. So it's very important for you to be able to have that connection. The second is proof. This is where client stories of people who mirror your prospect, right? The same starting point, the same doubts, the same excuses, but a different result. When they see somebody that's just like them who got the outcome they want, the wall starts to come down. They start to have that hope. And the third here is consistency. This one takes time, but it's the most powerful. When somebody has been consuming your content for weeks, every single piece is speaking directly to their specific situation, accurately describing their problems, articulating things that they couldn't put into words themselves. Trust starts to build automatically, because they start to think, hey man, if this person understands my problem this well, they must have the solution. And so your content around this trust belief doesn't scream, trust me, right? It's like, trust me. You earn trust through specificity, through empathy, through proof. Now, here's the part that should blow your freaking mind just a little bit. I want you to look at these 7 beliefs again. Pain, doubt, desire, cost, money, method, and trust. Do you notice anything? Every single one of those beliefs is probably an objection that you're already getting on sales calls. And if not, this is keeping a lot of people from becoming a sales call, from getting on your calendar. People are going to say, I think my problem is something else. That's pain and problem. I think I just need to do what I'm already doing, but better. That's doubt. I'm sure I can get these kind of results, or I'm not sure if I can get these kind of results actually. That would probably be like, can I actually do this? That's a desire thing. I'm not sure if this is the right approach for me. This isn't the right time. I can't afford it, right? Obviously money. I've tried something like this before. That's the method belief. How do I know this will work for me? That's the trust belief. I think I can figure this out on my own. That's the help belief. So 7 beliefs, 7 objections. And the difference is, instead of handling those objections on sales calls, which many won't even make it to a sales call, and if you're trying to do this on a sales call, it makes sales hard. Instead, we want to do this in our content, so you're dissolving them like well before they even book with you. So that way, by the time somebody does get on your calendar, they've already been sold. You're not pitching them, or you're not trying to convince them or arm wrestle them. You're just having a conversation with somebody who's already decided that they want to work with you. The only thing you might need to talk about is just some logistics. And that's what pre-sold means. And that's the power of belief shifting content. So now that you know the 7 beliefs, the next step is actually taking these and turning them into content that you could post every single week. So let's end this video with a very simple formula. For each belief that you're going to use, you could test out this structure. And it's called the truth is framework. So step one, name the current belief that your audience holds. Call it out directly, whatever it may be. And there's going to be different ones. So just start with one. So let's say the problem belief. I think I need blah, blah, blah. I think it's my genetics. I think X, Y, and Z. I need more leads. Call it out directly. Step two is agitate the problem that the belief is causing. So what problems is that belief causing? Right? They're burning money. They're wasting time. They're stressing, whatever it is. Then show them the pain, right? You got to articulate that. Step three is introduce the new belief with the phrases, something like, look, the truth is, the reality of this is something that's going to be able to be like a pre-frame. Then back it with proof, of course. And then you want to go into here's what, let me just give you an example, probably the easiest way. So I can say, hey, most coaches believe that the fastest way to grow is to post more content and generate more leads. But here's what that actually causes. You end up on a content hamster wheel. I'm agitating, right? Posting 3 times a day, burning out, and you're still not hitting consistent months. You're creating a freaking army of followers who love your free stuff, but never actually buy. The truth is, right, the pre-frame, the fastest way to grow isn't more content. It's the right content. When you say the right words in the right way, in the right order to the right people, they buy. It's not about volume. It's about precision. Volume is just when you scale, right? So that would be the basics of a belief shifting post. And then I can go into telling a story, using a metaphor, using an analogy, using an authority figure to borrow credibility from, to basically prove my point. Does that make sense? So you see, I'm not teaching anything. I'm not giving a how-to. I didn't, share 7 tips. I'm shifting a belief. And that's going to move people closer to buying from you. And now to make your belief shifts land even harder, you want to have some tools in your arsenal. And once you have this down, I want you to think about a personal story that you can potentially use to shift it. When did you hold maybe the wrong belief personally, and what happened when you shifted it? This might be your backstory. This could just be a random everyday story. You want to find something that you can use to shift the actual belief. On the opposing side, this can be a client story, right? You could tell a story about when a client was stuck with these beliefs and doing these things and what she did to shift it, or he did to shift it. And then, make it multisensory, really bring people into the story. The more you can bring it in and make it real, the more it's going to resonate with people. As I alluded to before, you can use a metaphor, an analogy. Make the abstract essentially concrete, right? So I used the doctor analogy before about self-diagnosing cancer, right? That's an analogy. It takes a concept that somebody might resist and it pulls it into a context that they can't really argue with. And of course, you can borrow credibility from a thought leader, from some type of authority figure in your niche. And this is a very powerful way to be able to, frame a belief shift. This needs to be somebody that your audience either has probably heard of or has some trust with. So I use Jay Abraham. I can use Alex Hormozi or Dan Kennedy or Russell Brunson. Most people have heard of them and they might trust them. And so now the belief isn't just coming from you, it's backed by coming from somebody that they might respect, right? And so here's what's cool about this. You only have 7 beliefs to shift. And each belief can be backed up by 4 or 5 different proof mechanisms. You could literally do one belief, one what we call proof mechanism. You can do another belief, another proof mechanism. So it's you can have 24 to 30 pieces of content that all drive towards the same outcome, that make your audience ready to buy. And if you do this, you'll never run out of content ideas. And every single post that you do has strategic purpose behind it. So to wrap this up, the core thesis here is that education content is commoditized. And it's training your audience with the identity to be a learner. What you want to be able to do is create influence by using belief shifting content. And when you can create content around these 7 different beliefs, these are the core beliefs that take somebody from skeptical, not really sure, to becoming a pre-sold buyer. And when you can structure your content this way and create your content cadence around this, use this in your workshops, in your masterclasses, in your VSLs, in your email sequences, in everything that you're doing, you're going to find that you go from these unpredictable months, these calendars where, it's like a freaking ghost town. So you will have more consistent people booked on your calendar and pre-sold. In fact, the average that we have seen, looking at a database of helping out almost 1,000 people, is the average person can get between 8 to 16 clients a month that are already pre-sold. And their close rates go up through the roof because they're not getting all these objections when you do this right. So go ahead and just massively take action. If you have any questions for me, shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Happy to help. Subscribe if you found this helpful, and leave a comment down below if you had a takeaway. I would love to hear. All right. And if you want the whole playbook on these beliefs, by the way, in the description section, you will find it. And I hope it helps. Remember, your message matters now more than ever has before. Don't be afraid to speak it. Be seen, be heard, and be impactful.